Good afternoon to everyone, and good morning to those who are joining us on the West Coast. We decided to put together a webinar to address some of your concerns with the coronavirus. We've been sending out weekly emails to the tenants and the owners. We've been listening to podcasts. We've got mastermind groups from around the country of top property managers. So we're trying to bounce ideas off each other and see what the best course of action, how best we can attack this and move forward with little implications. What we decided to do is put together this webinar to discuss changes in legislation, the CARES Act, our response to it, and what we're doing on our end to be proactive. We did create the webpage, therealtymedics.com/COVID-19. Provides additional resources to all your tenants for financial assistance, rental assistance, bill pay, utilities, anything and everything we can help them get through this trying time. But to start off, I'd like to discuss kind of the difference between what covered properties are versus non-covered properties.
Actually, just if you have any questions, please either use the chat feature or the questions. We'll be happy to answer those questions live. We have a bunch of owners who did put in some questions. We're going to answer those, going through that right now. But if you need any clarification, or just go ahead and we'll go back and forth and answer any questions you have.
Well, for starters, Ben, let's kind of touch base on what is a covered property versus a non-covered property.
All right. Well, according to the CARES Act, there's actually about 14 types of mortgages that are covered under the CARES Act. But specifically, the only ones that like 99% fall under is a Fannie Mae, a Freddie Mac, or a HUD-backed loan. If you're unsure of that, we can look into that. But those are the main ones that are covered under the CARES Act. If they're not, if you have a commercial loan, it's owned in cash, private funding, or any of that, that is actually good news, and you're not under the restrictions of the CARES Act. So, which means late fees, and we'll get into all the dates and stuff like that. But we have to be 100% sure if it is a traditional financing HUD, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac backed loan or not, because it could go to legal issues quickly.
All right, without further ado, let's dive into it. First question comes from Tim. He says, are your offices still operating at full capabilities while working from home? This can be in regards to rent collection, maintenance, leasing, inspections, etc.
Yeah, we're still fully operational. Our staff of 30, about 27 or so are working from home. There's a few of us in the office. Some of us just prefer here. We're trying to do social distancing other than maybe me and Jason next to each other. Yeah, our office is we are fully ready to go work from home. We're still doing inspections. We're taking the safety precautions of our inspectors of wearing the PPE and stuff like that going in. We are not doing in-person inspections like periodic with tenants at the moment. Our maintenance companies are doing that with the proper protection as well. We're still doing showings. It's like nothing really happened as far as the operations of the business.
Yeah, and to clarify, we had all the technology, software, and systems in place prior to the shutdown. So we've really been totally unaffected by this, other than the office looks a little different. It's kind of a ghost town around here right now. But anyway, moving forward, if a tenant stops paying, how do I recoup those losses?
I'm just trying to move it down to see that. So if the tenant stops paying, we are actively working with the tenant to set up a payment plan, and trying to get open lines of communication to them and working with them. So out of 1,000+ properties that are rented, we have about 30 properties that have not paid any rent at all. And of those properties without a payment plan is 10. So we are actively working. There's another 40 or so that have not paid the full month's rent, but we are actively working and collecting those funds. So if they just straight up refuse to not do anything, we're just going to continue pressing them, being the squeaky wheel until they either move out or they pay. The only thing we can really do is keep it on their credit and kind of just say, you have to pay, you have to pay. But legally, our hands are tied in a lot of ways.
All right, to redirect from these questions for a moment, we got one that popped up here. like to address. It says, I've got a deposit down for a Palm Bay house that is meant to close in the summer. I'm trying to figure out if it's better to back out given the uncertainty in the marketplace. Can you provide guidance on the rental market forecast and whether it might be wiser to hold off until the future becomes clearer? I would say do not hold on. Continue what you're doing. If it were me, that's what I would continue doing, because there's numerous reports out there that the economy is starting to reopen. I believe Georgia's starting phase 1 next week.
It's really too unclear to say that. I mean, unless you have some financial reasons of getting out of it now. But you know, Palm Bay is a new market for us. It is starting to rent. The rental market, like if you have a vacant home right now, that's actually a good thing. Our leases, we have 30% more applications. We have our showings are up. So it's just a small sector of people who are out of jobs, who can't pay right now, that is affected. But we are getting really good qualified people who are still an essential business working out there. So we're actually not seeing a downturn at all on the leasing side of things.
Yeah, actually quite the opposite. We're going to touch on this later, but showings are actually up considerably from where they normally would be in the month of April. So that's a positive note. And if you do decide to back out of this property, you know, 6 months from now, when things change and you decide you want back in, it's going to cost you considerable amount more, and you're going to lose the equity you would have built out for the previous 6 months anyway. So next question. In terms of rents, can I recoup them or are they just gone?
That's kind of a tough one to answer. I mean, it's kind of vague. It goes back to what we said, we're actively trying to collect that rent. We're trying to be the squeaky wheel. We're going to do everything we can until we're legally allowed to act upon that. We are going to put into collections and things like that. So
another question just came in. You just qualified a potential tenant who will be moving in my property on May 1st. Is there still a risk or possibility that we will get delayed rent payment? It's not likely. We have not backed down from our criteria on the leasing side of things. If they can prove that they're qualified, they have the credit scores, the history,
we're getting recent pay stubs. So if they're employed, the risk is not there. So we're renting out houses every day. So that wouldn't be a risk to me.
Mm-hmm. Next question is, what are you doing differently? How to vet potential tenants and minimize the risk of tenants who can't pay now or in the near future? Same thing. We're not changing. We're not reducing the criteria or being lax on things to get people in the door. You know, we still got the strong set of criteria and we follow that to a T.
We're making sure that they're not in the retail businesses or any of the businesses that we know are shut down. And if we question that at all, we're asking for bank statements, documentation to show that. So, you know, there's still a lot of people employed right now. So, and luckily those are the renters that we're seeing, at least across our 1,000+ homes.
Another question came in from Rory. My property has no mortgage, you pay cash. Are courts open to file evictions if tenants don't pay rent, and the sheriff's office enforcing evictions?
Great question. Our governor, DeSantis, has a no eviction policy in place until May 17th. Once that opens up, we'll have to check on the county that that your property is located. Once the county is open for eviction court, then we can post a 3-day notice and we can start the eviction process. The sheriff's office will be at the end of that, and they are on a different time schedule than the courts. But it does take a little bit of time to get to that stage of things. So we would definitely suggest the moment. Right now, May 17th is our date for any non-CARES back mortgaged home. And that date is the day we start 3-day notice and start the eviction, start charging late fees and all of this. And then we'll just have to monitor the sheriff. So we might get the writ of possession, and the sheriff is the only one who has to deliver that at that time.
Next question.
And also to clarify that we're going to add to is we are going to be sending out an email to all our owners, anyone who thinks or knows they don't have a mortgage or thinks they possibly do not have a HUD-backed Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or a non-qualifying loan. We're going to have you sign a document stating that, and then at that point we're going to turn on the late fees and we're going to actively go against those tenants. That will be coming out in the next week or so. We just need to get it docu-signed. If you're unsure, we can also use a title company to help verify what type of mortgage you have. There will be a small fee, like $50 or so. We haven't quite got the final number on that.
Our next question. I imagine there will be a lot of evictions coming up. Most people have not gone through them before. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for the CARES homes, the HUD, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, covered properties. You know, it goes in 120-day hold until July 27th. At that time, you know, it's going to open up to the courts as long as it doesn't get extended. And there's probably going to be a ton of filings going on at that time. So it's kind of hard to foresee what's going to actually happen. You know, so far in April the 21st, you know, like I said, we only have 10 properties that have not given us an answer and have not paid full month's rent out of 1,000. So it's 1%. It is a number. If that is one of your properties, one of them is actually mine. But you know, we'll just have to kind of monitor this as May and June and July happen.
Just to tag onto this, so for clarification purposes, August, if you're a covered property, you won't be able to file an eviction until August. And yeah, there very well could be a backlog. We're going to have to play it by ear, and we'll continue to monitor it. Moving forward, are you discussing with the tenants they are not allowed to stop paying rent and the consequences of not paying rent?
Yes. We're in contact with them constantly. For the ones who have not paid the full month's rent, we are every day we're talking to them. They're into our system, and we are following up those payment plans and ensure we get paid.
Yeah, they are still obligated to all terms and conditions of the lease. I know in some cities you heard rumors about different activists promoting don't pay rent. We haven't seen any of that here. They are absolutely obligated to abide by the terms and conditions of their existing lease. If evictions are not going on now, they will be eventually. The impact of having an eviction on your credit will not allow you to rent again with a reputable agency. Is that true?
Yeah, of course. We report all of that, report their credit. We also report to the Rent Bureau. So any tenant who has any type of deficiencies will always see that, and anyone else will as well who's of size.
All right. Is there a way to know if our tenants are still working or are essential?
No.
Not really.
Not. I mean, if they're paying rent, great. If they're, you know, if you're one of those few, we can always look into it. We're communicating with those tenants to understand why, and any of the necessary information, we'll communicate that with you.
Mm-hmm. If a tenant reaches out and says they can't pay rent, what are your steps to help them?
We've been proactive for the last month in setting up the Realty-Medic / COVID-19 website. We're showing them how to log on, get the unemployment, rental assistance, absolutely anything, stimulus packages. We're trying to help them in ensuring that they do pay rent. And we're just trying to be the proactive approach. And so far that has been working. Our tenants have been responsive to us. And we're just kind of all trying to get through this together.
Do you notify the owners of the tenant plans to not pay rent?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can always ask as an owner, you can always ask and see what the current status is in the beginning of the month, but we are actively working on it, and we'll always inform our owners before the 10th of the month.
Next question. What kind of increases have you seen in people not paying rent? Kind of touched on that a little bit.
We touched on that. Only have 10 that are non-responsive, non-paid.
Are you still renting homes? Has there been a dramatic slowdown in rentals?
Covered that earlier. Yeah, we're seeing an uptick. We are coming into the summer months, but if we look at April last year, we're up 30% in the speed and the number of applications coming in.
Yeah, all good signs. Plus, we're moving into the busy summer season. In May to August, September is really the busy season in Florida, so that's going to help as well.
That's super busy. I mean, we're renting all the way up until the holidays, and that's where the actual slowdown is. But the super peak is like Jason said, the summer.
Are rental prices dropping?
Slightly. We're just not pushing the limits in renting homes. We're trying to rent them for what they were last year or somewhere close to that. We're not trying to go up and above at this time. Every house is going to be slightly different. If we're seeing rents going up, we are going to adjust. But we're definitely not. It's not a trend going up, but they're not a trend going down either. So.
Eric is saying, are you still showing properties? Yes, absolutely. Big increase there. What creative ways are you showing properties to potential renters that do not want to leave their home?
I don't know what that means. So we're not showing tenant occupied homes. We're only showing vacant homes. And I guess that's.
We're really not making any changes whatsoever to the showing side because there's been no need to. With such an increase, everything's going well in that department, so we're focusing our efforts in other areas.
I guess one thing, there are a few HOAs that have closed down that have prevented us to show the properties because the gates are closed and adding that. So if the homes are in one of those gated communities where there's no guards and things like that, those homes are affected until the HOAs open back up.
Yep. Since there's reduced street and foot traffic, what additional ways are you marketing and connecting with potential renters? Same thing. We're not making any changes right now. Everything's been successful on that front.
Let's skip over a few of these.
Okay. Dave wants to know, do you expect tenants to reach out if they expect to be late? Most have reached out. You're going to get the occasional person who's going to ghost you. They may try to take advantage of the situation because there's no immediate consequences at the moment.
But we are doing a property visit. We are posting not a demand for rent. We're posting a vacancy check, a wellness check, and we're trying to get them to communicate with us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we still are going after the ones who are ghosting us. But again, there's only 10 out of our whole portfolio at the moment.
Does waiving late fees in this instance create any sort of precedent later on in the lease?
We can't retroactively charge late fees later on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that the government's just not allowing us to charge at this time. So we can still demand rent. We just can't demand any extra fees related to rent, like non-sufficient fund fees and bank fees and things like that.
And in reality, a lot of tenants may not even know the changes. You really have to be keeping up with the news to be aware.
There's a couple of here.
All right, another one. Is the opening up of the economy a county by county decision in Florida? And what is the best idea when Orlando will open up?
It is county by county. We have not been informed yet when the 7 or 8 counties that we operate in will open up. They just opened up Jacksonville beaches here yesterday, but the stay in place order is by the governor up through, is it the end of the month? I think I'm not sure when the actual DeSantis. I think it's end of month, but the 17th is the date for evictions. So I'm sure we'll be updated shortly on that.
Another question here. If a renter can't pay, what is the current state of owners being able to suspend mortgage payments in parallel?
If you cannot make your mortgage payment, you should absolutely call your mortgage company and ask for forbearance if that is a financial issue. Only do that in the last state, but all banks are giving forbearances without penalty to your credit. Rent is 2 separate things. We're trying to collect, obviously, the renter's rent, and we're going after them. But if you are in a difficult financial situation, definitely contact your mortgage company and ask for forbearance. We've had owners do that, and it's been a pretty easy process compared to if you were an investor back in 2008 or 2009 where you had to actually miss a payment to get anything done. These are happening in one phone call, one click of a button.
All right, another question. In forums online in Orlando, I've seen tenants who believe they have the upper hand because landlords would have had a hard time finding new tenants during this time and shortly thereafter. What are your thoughts on that? Totally, well, correcting the fact that tenants always think they have the upper hand. Fortunately, we know the laws. So that's incorrect. Showings are going very well, leasing properties, again, coming into the busy season. So
And our tenants have been very proactive with us, you know, and they have been saying, hey, I've lost my job and things like that. We've set up payment plans and they're actually following through. So our tenant base has actually been very reactive and appreciative of everything we've been doing communicating wise, and it's a two-way street. So I think it's been very positive, especially if you compare us to a lot of places around the country.
Vince would like to know, how does the individual tenant and the Realty Medics know if the property is under the Federal CARES Act or Governor DeSantis' executive order? Tenants are not going to know. They don't know your financial situations. We don't share any information with them whatsoever. You would have the responsibility to know if, you know, what type of mortgage you have, if it falls under traditional financing, or obviously if there's no mortgage, you'd be.
You can call your bank and probably get that answer. It's usually been sold. So if you put 20% down or something like that, then you're in conventional financing. So if it's one of the major banks, then you're under the CARES Act and have to wait. So
another question that came in: what is Disney saying about opening? Well, Disney just furloughed 43,000 people yesterday, so probably not.
They're not talking about reopening right now. Universal Studios is the only one who's posted of the parks. Disney put all of their employees through the Florida unemployment program for them, which put them first in line. So a lot of non-Disney people have said that's not fair. It took my wife last 20 days to get her first unemployment check, and she worked at SeaWorld. So it's a big deal for what Disney's doing. So if they are employed by Disney, it's a good thing. They're going to get their stimulus check of $600 plus the $275 a week. Universal's paying all of their employees through the 31st of May. So they're still employed. So those are two, and then the teachers are the top three employers in Orange County right now.
Next question: how do the Realty Mex know the property is still occupied and that the tenant plans to make up the missed payment and has not abandoned the property?
Property visits.
Yep.
Right, we're doing that. We're actively contacting them. Of the 10, we've already posted notices.
Yeah, and if we suspect the property is going to be abandoned, we're going to post an abandonment notice and treat it just like we would, not under a pandemic. And if, you know, we'll make phone calls, text, try to communicate with tenants. But if that abandonment notice expires and we've gotten no word from them, then we're going to take over possession. We're not going to delay that. And as far as the tenant, their plans to make up missed payment, well, rent's going to be due. It's going to be due in full once this thing is over. So, you know, if they don't abide by that, there will be consequences, unfortunately.
And we have some plans of other as it goes on, we have other options to get like non-cash security deposits where we can cash in the security deposit, but then it's still backed by one of these other companies. So there's some other ideas we have as depending on how this kind of goes. So there's a couple more.
For those of us not located in Florida, can you please provide an update of the current orders in effect in Orlando?
We're to stay at home, shelter in place, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Essential businesses only through the end of the month. And then we're just waiting for further clarification from that. We can't do any evictions until May 17th for those non-CARES homes.
Right. And unfortunately, real estate is considered essential. So between the real estate, the sales, the inspections, the maintenance, all that's going on it's continuing on as normal operations. How is the Space Coast doing? How are rentals affected there?
Right now, we're not seeing very much being affected out in the Space Coast. Everyone's working out there. The contracts are still active. They're still essential. So everything I've seen from my previous coworkers they're all employed and still doing business as usual.
I think there's even a rocket launch going up tomorrow, isn't there?
I believe there is, yeah.
All right. What happens if the tenant stays until the lease ends and departs without fully paying the missed payments, and the security deposit is not enough to cover those missed payments? There's really no changes here. We would still operate as normal.
Yeah, if it goes above the security deposit, after they move out, then we'll have to determine that. We do work with a collection agency that will help us gather that money, and we do usually see that money over time. So because we are placing tenants with decent credit, so.
Next question, how is the Villages doing? The Villages is a retirement community about an hour north of Orlando. We haven't really seen any difference.
No, it's we haven't seen any one area like extremely affected. So the Villages is still renting. We still have a lot of new construction coming online up there. We have a lot of homes, and we're not seeing any type of downturn up in that area at all.
Is the tenant solely responsible for utility payments, or can utility companies recover missed tenant payments from the property owner?
Tenants have security or the utilities in their name. It does not reflect anything back onto the owner. Utility companies will go after the tenants for that.
Okay.
And they will not turn them off right now. No one in Florida will, if they don't make their payment.
Yeah,
no one's getting their lights turned out right now.
Is the owner obligated to fulfill tenant maintenance requests during COVID-19? If yes, are all the maintenance requests being filled? Yes and yes. Yeah, they're still required to do these. Vendors actually want to work right now, so there's really no slowdown in that department.
We actually have the lowest number of open work orders that I can remember right now. So we are turning them out. We're turning them out very quickly. So.
Are there any relief programs or initiatives for owners to cover HOA fees, real estate taxes, insurance, maintenance, etc. during the COVID-19 period? Not that I know of, no.
Yeah. Unless you got one of the stimulus packages or something like that.
Yeah.
And you can always go and ask for a forbearance on your mortgage or restructure that way. A lot of refinancing going across the industry right now with rates in the 2s in some cases.
Yeah. What happens if a tenant dies? I assume dies from COVID-19. We'd really handle it the same way. Well, alert the proper authorities, let them do their job.
Yeah, there was something that came out last night on if your tenant actually has the coronavirus, then they actually fall into a HUD protected class at that time. It's something that's new regulations out there, and there's some lawyers looking into that, but they're saying they're a protected class right now. So that came out just yesterday. So we're still kind of looking at that. None of our tenants have said, hey, I got the coronavirus or the COVID-19 right now, but there are a lot of, there's a protected class. There's a lot of things on social media saying, rent strikes and stuff like that. We have not seen any of that right now. And there's that.
Next question says, Central Florida is mostly impacted. What is the number that are filed for unemployment in the last 3 weeks? The total for the U.S. is 22 million. I'd like to know the numbers that applies to our investment for Central Florida. I don't know about the last 3 weeks, but in the last 4 weeks, 1.5 million claims have been submitted. Only 162,000 been processed.
Took my wife 3 weeks, so there's that. She applied April 1st.
What percentage of renters did not pay rent in these same areas? We kind of touched base on that earlier. Essentially 97% have paid. How are the lenders for investment homes? How are the lenders for investment home properties doing? Are they able to sell their loans on the secondary market? We're not lenders, but I know they're still operational.
They're just tightening up their requirements, but they do have money to lend. So,
yeah. In fact, I think Chase even upped the credit score to 700 for approval.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
do we address this one?
No.
If a tenant has COVID-19 now, are we required to report that to the next potential tenant in the future?
I'll take a guess and say no, but I won't quote us. We'll deal with that once it comes. We'll ask our legal team for that, for guidance. But I wouldn't imagine that we would have to communicate that. We don't even have to communicate if someone has passed away in a property. That's another myth. So, does anyone else have any questions? Here's one more. If
tenants leave due to unemployment, sickness, or the lease ends, is there a process or requirements to get the home clean to avoid COVID-19 spread to new tenants?
We've worked with our unit term teams, and we have special cleaning procedure that's out there that we're spending the extra money and time on to make sure that the property is cleaned properly and sanitized. So there won't be any issue in re-renting that. But if they do leave, you know, again, remember that's a good thing in most cases that we can get a good paying tenant in, and you don't have to wait for an eviction to happen later on in the year, which is an unknown time frame.
Don't see any other questions at the moment. Let's just double check. Okay. So if anybody does have anything that comes up, feel free to reach out to us. You're welcome to call us, or you can shoot me an email. It's jason@therealtymedics.com or ben@therealtymedics.com. I'd love to help you out any way we can, and we'll make sure we get the answers for you.
We'll also have another webinar here, maybe next week or the week after that. We'll try to do these more regularly to answer any questions you have.
Oh, another question just popped up. Are you doing anything to support owners that might have tenants not paying rent, such as reduced fees or anything else?
Well, if the tenants aren't paying rent, that means we're not making any money as well. We're in this together. So if there is a financial impact on your side, then we would definitely suggest talking to your mortgage company. But you know, we only make money on collected rent, and so we're in the same boat as you.
Yeah. And since we're on a percentage-based fee structure, if you're making less rent, maybe through a payment plan, we're taking less fees as well. So we're sharing the responsibility on this.
All right.
I think that's it.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us.